It was a Saturday night. In a residential neighborhood on Queen Alexandria Lane, there was little outward indication that one of the city's most disturbing homicide investigations was about to begin. Then, at approximately 9:15 that night, Jackson police officers were called to a home in the 300 block of Queen Alexandria Lane. The original call reportedly concerned an aggravated assault, but when officers entered the residence, what they discovered was far worse. Inside the home were 3 members of the same family, 2 sisters, and a 2-year-old boy. All 3 were dead from gunshot wounds. They were Keyana Weathersby, her sister Erica Weathersby, and Keyana's 2-year-old son, Camari Givens. Within hours, detectives would begin confronting a frightening possibility. This did not appear to be a burglary that had simply gone wrong. It did not appear to be an accidental shooting, and according to police, the toddler had not been struck by a stray bullet during some chaotic exchange of gunfire. Investigators believed all 3 victims had been deliberately targeted. And as detectives began following the evidence, the case expanded rapidly. A vehicle would become part of the investigation. A police pursuit would follow. Weapons would be recovered. Multiple suspects would be arrested. One suspect would be tracked more than 400 miles away to Texas, and investigators would make another deeply troubling discovery. A rifle allegedly used in the killings had reportedly been stolen weeks earlier from a Jackson police vehicle. This is the story of the Queen Alexandria Lane triple homicide, a case that took 3 members of one family and left an entire community asking the same question: why?
One that's a mother, even if you're not a mother, it would still make you feel some type of way that innocence and purity was violated. It was no words for it. It's still no words.
Family and
that there are people in the community that care, that's praying, that even in the midst of this devastating catastrophe, that there is still hope. There's still humanity.
He was just pulling up, and the guy, he was leaving, and my friend, he just pulled his car up a little bit so the guy wouldn't hit his car. Everything looked, knowing that it happened right across the street from you, knowing I'm a father myself, it's pretty tough to deal with. Whatever happened, I'm pretty sure it wasn't even called for.
And before we continue, it is important to state that everyone charged in this case is presumed innocent, unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. The allegations discussed in this documentary come from law enforcement statements, court proceedings, and publicly available reporting. Jackson is Mississippi's capital and largest city. Like any major city, its neighborhoods contain thousands of ordinary stories: families raising children, people going to work, relatives visiting one another, and homes expected to be places of safety. Queen Alexandria Lane should have been no different. But on June 27, that sense of safety was shattered. When police entered the home that Saturday night, they found Keyana, Erica, and little Camari. 3 lives. 3 victims, 1 family. The investigation immediately became a triple homicide case. For detectives, the condition of the scene raised urgent questions. Who had entered this home? Why were these particular people targeted? Were the victims familiar with whoever attacked them? Was robbery involved? And perhaps most disturbing of all, why would anyone intentionally kill a 2-year-old child?
So on June 27, 2026, officers with the Jackson Police Department responded to a resident in the 300 block of Queen Alexandria Drive following reports of an aggravated assault. When we arrived, the officers located 3 deceased victims inside the house. The victims have been identified as Keyana Weathersby, her 2-year-old son, Camari Givens, and Keyana's sister, Erica Weathersby. During the initial investigation, detectives learned that the victim's vehicle, a red Mitsubishi Mirage, had also been taken from the residence. The vehicle was recovered over the weekend and is currently being processed with the assistance of the FBI as our investigators continue to collect and analyze evidence. As the investigation progressed, detectives received and followed up on numerous tips from the public. Earlier today, information was developed during the investigation that led the detectives to identify a vehicle that we believe to be connected with the homicide. Officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop at 18th and Maddox Road. However, the driver refused to stop. Officers were ultimately able to safely surround the vehicle and take 2 suspects into custody without further incident. Currently, as a result, Cornelius Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, 28 years old, has been charged with capital murder and a convicted felon not to be in possession of a firearm. Jordan Carter, 28, no relation, has been charged with capital murder in this case as well. This has been an extensive investigation involving countless hours of work by the Jackson Police Department, their detectives, patrol, crime scene personnel, and our law enforcement partners. Investigators worked diligently to collect physical evidence, conduct numerous interviews, and analyze digital and forensic evidence as a result to develop the probable cause that led to today's arrest. This investigation is ongoing and remains active. The Jackson Police Department extends its deepest condolences to the family and the loved ones of the victims. We remain committed to seeking justice for the victims and appreciate the cooperation and support provided by the community throughout this investigation. The mayor and I would also like to thank our law enforcement partners, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, the U.S. Marshal's Office, and all of the other agencies and personnel who assisted throughout this investigation. I also want to recognize the outstanding work of our Detective Bureau, led by Detective Jackson in this case, Deputy Chief Banks, Captain Wells, and TFO Blanford, and our intelligence team and their intelligence unit and their team. They did work throughout the weekend, countless hours to follow up these leads. But we are also saying that in spite of this, our commitment is we are still determined to continue to work on bringing everyone to justice who is involved in this heinous crime. So we are asking anyone with additional information related to this case, you're encouraged as always to contact the Jackson Police Department at 601-960-1800 or our Crime Stoppers. Although arrests have been made, investigations must continue, and we will follow up on any additional leads in this case. At this point in time, we will take your questions that will be answered either by anyone on our team or by the lead detective here in this case.
Second question, do you know what caused these guys to make this senseless act?
So as we know, it's an ongoing investigation, but this was an intentional targeted act to include the killing of the child. And so, which is why the capital murder charge does exist. We also would not want to speculate on any motives to jeopardize this case.
And also, do we know if, you said it was targeted, but if they were related, if they just knew them, by the way, we know they were targeted, you know why they were targeted, if they knew them, basically.
This is, like I said, it's still an ongoing investigation right now, and to not jeopardize the case with any information outside of that.
Chief Brackney, are there other suspects involved besides the 2 you mentioned?
So we are going to continue to investigate to develop any further leads in the event that there are additional persons that are of interest that we will bring up to this case. And again, when we say targeted, we want the public to know that this wasn't a random act, that someone just went past the house or these were persons who may not have had a connection. It was an intentional attack at this home.
Chief, what do you say to these grieving families?
You know, as we say, and as we said that night, this is senseless. This was a heinous crime committed by vile individuals who really deserve the utmost punishment in these cases. What we can say to the victims is this. We've brought in peer support for our officers, for any of the first responders, and we are also offering that trauma and support to the families in the community who are impacted by these. It just doesn't stop with the family. It's the extended city of Jackson who is mourning. And we've heard from the nation regarding this crime and the impact that it's had across the nation when a child is senselessly targeted in this case as well.
Are there any efforts to help combat crimes like these?
So we're always going our efforts to combat crime. We work closely with our task force officers in the FBI. Although Detective Blanford is a JPD officer, he's assigned as a task force officer. We are developing stronger relationships, and that's how we're able to solve these crimes faster. But what we also know too, that violent crime and targeted crime, we can disrupt those, but we have to get in front of them, and it does take the community to help us with this as well.
And Chief, real quick, you may have already said this, but with the two guys you guys arrested, did they find any weapons on them or anything else relating to that may cause the shooting with?
On the initial stop, we did recover one 9mm assault rifle, AR, pistol, and another handgun, unknown handgun, gold in color.
And was this inside the vehicle?
One was this, all three was inside the vehicle, on the back seat, located on the back seat.
And could that be obviously connected to the shooting?
So we will attempt to identify that. It has to go underneath our ballistic investigations as well, so that we make sure that we have all of the forensic evidence first before we make it or come to any conclusions about that. Those weapons will be processed both through our forensic labs and through our ATF.
Is there any final message, Chief, you want to give out to the public about these two arrests, by the way?
So as we have said every time I've stood before you when it comes to these type of crimes, we will solve them. We will find you. We will continue to make arrests in these cases. So although you may think initially that you got away with a crime, it doesn't stop just because you left the scene. We will continue to investigate each and every crime, because every victim in the city of Jackson deserves authentic justice and not lip service from us. Thank you so much.
Jackson police have arrested two men who they feel are responsible for the triple homicide that happened on Queen Alexandria Lane last week. Two sisters and a toddler was killed inside their home, and investigators said that this toddler was shot while he was sleeping in his own bed. Chief Brackney says they do not want to reveal a motive yet because they still have more investigating to do on this case, but they did arrest Cornelius Carter and Jordan Carter. Now, they have both been charged with capital murder, and the judge did say that they were dangerous people with extensive criminal history. Some of their past crimes include escaping from a detention center and assaulting an officer. Police say although these arrests were made, they still feel like they're not done. They said they feel more people were involved, and they said if you know any information that could lead to an arrest, make sure to reach out to JPD or Crime Stoppers.
Before discussing suspects and evidence, it is important to remember who was lost. Keyana Weathersby was a daughter, a sister, and a mother. Erica Weathersby was Keyana's sister and Camari's aunt, and Camari Givens was only 2 years old. He had barely begun his life. To the public, their names would soon become attached to headlines, police briefings, and court appearances. But to their relatives, they were not a headline. They were family. 3 people who should have returned home, celebrated birthdays, and continued building their futures. Instead, their family would soon be planning funerals. As investigators examined the home, one fact became particularly disturbing. Police Chief Rashal Brackney publicly described the shooting as a targeted attack. Authorities said Camari had not simply been caught in crossfire. He was inside the home. Later information released by the Hinds County coroner indicated that all 3 victims suffered close-range gunshot wounds to the head. Camari was reportedly in bed. For investigators, this reinforced what police had been saying almost from the beginning. Whatever happened inside that house appeared deliberate. And if this was deliberate, then detectives needed to identify not only who had carried it out, but why. The first major breakthrough came quickly. 2 days after the killings, on Monday, June 29th, Jackson police announced the arrests of 2 men, Cornelius Carter and Jordan Carter. Both were 28 years old. Despite sharing a last name, police emphasized that the 2 men were not related. Their arrests reportedly came after officers attempted to stop a vehicle connected to the investigation. What followed was a pursuit. Eventually, both men were taken into custody. Police also reported recovering multiple firearms from the vehicle. Suddenly, investigators had moved from searching for unknown killers to having two people in custody. Cornelius Carter was charged with capital murder and being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. Jordan Carter was also charged with capital murder. The following day, June 30th, both men appeared in Jackson Municipal Court. Both were denied bond. But detectives were not finished. The investigation was expanding. That same day, authorities arrested a third person, 25-year-old Mikala Young. Young was charged with capital murder. She appeared in court on July 1 and was also denied bond. Later reporting provided more insight into what investigators believe her alleged role may have been. According to investigators quoted by local media, Young allegedly drove Cornelius Carter and Jordan Carter to the location on Queen Alexandria Lane. Authorities further alleged that she knew robbery was intended. According to that account, Young allegedly left after hearing gunfire. Those allegations have not been proven at trial, but they added an important new dimension to the investigation. This case was no longer being portrayed simply as 3 killings inside a home. Investigators were beginning to connect the homicides to an alleged robbery, and the possibility of multiple participants raised another question. Was there anyone else involved? The answer, according to police, was yes. While 3 suspects were already in custody in Mississippi, investigators were pursuing another man. His name was Devone Modacure. The search crossed state lines. On July 1, 2026, Modacure was arrested in Forney, Texas. His arrest involved the U.S. Marshals Service, along with Texas authorities. Police described him as the 4th suspect connected to the Jackson triple homicide. The next step would be extradition. Modacure would have to be returned from Texas to Mississippi to face the accusations against him. When that happened, the scope of the case became clearer. On July 16th, after being returned to Jackson, Modacure appeared in court. He faced 3 counts of capital murder, along with additional accusations including armed robbery, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, auto theft, burglary of an occupied dwelling, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. He too was denied bond. Investigators also publicly identified armed robbery as an underlying alleged crime connected with the capital murder case. But even with 4 suspects behind bars, one of the biggest questions remained unanswered publicly. What was the complete motive? Police have said the attack was not random. But as of the latest public reporting available for this documentary, authorities have not released a complete explanation of why Keyana, Erica, and Camari were selected. Ballistics became one of the significant pieces of the investigation. Reports indicated that investigators recovered 5.56 millimeter shell casings from the crime scene. Multiple firearms were also reportedly recovered as investigators pursued suspects. Forensic analysis would therefore become essential. A weapon can be recovered. A cartridge casing can be collected. But detectives still must establish scientifically whether a particular weapon fired evidence recovered from a scene. That work falls largely to firearms examiners and crime laboratories. Investigators examine markings left on cartridge cases and bullets and compare them with test-fired ammunition from recovered weapons. In this case, authorities publicly reported a preliminary link between the stolen Jackson police rifle and the homicide. For prosecutors, physical evidence of that kind could become crucial. But a murder prosecution involving multiple defendants requires more than simply establishing that a gun was used. Prosecutors must establish the role, actions, and criminal responsibility of each person charged. Who possessed the weapon? Who entered the house? Who fired? Who planned the alleged robbery? Who knew what was going to happen? Who assisted? And what evidence connects each defendant to those actions? Those questions will ultimately have to be answered through evidence presented in court. In July, relatives and members of the community gathered to remember Keyana, Erica, and Camari. 3 deaths meant 3 empty spaces in one family. A mother gone, a sister gone, a child gone. The violence of one night extended far beyond the walls of the Queen Alexandria Lane home. Family members had to process the sudden loss. A community had to confront the idea that a 2-year-old child had allegedly been intentionally killed. Investigators had to reconstruct the final moments inside the house. And the justice system now faces the responsibility of determining exactly what happened and who is legally responsible. This is the part of violent crime statistics that numbers can never fully communicate. A homicide count can tell us how many people died. It cannot show the birthdays that will never happen, the phone calls that will never be answered, the family photographs that can never be recreated, or the lifelong effect on relatives who must somehow continue living after 3 people they loved were taken in a single night. There are still unresolved questions in this case. What precisely led to the alleged robbery? Why was this particular home targeted? What relationship, if any, existed between the accused and the victims? How did the stolen police rifle move from a law enforcement vehicle into the hands of whoever ultimately used it? What role does the physical evidence assign to each defendant? Will additional evidence or charges emerge? And most importantly, what happened inside the Queen Alexandria Lane home before police arrived at 9:15 that Saturday night? The answers may eventually emerge through court filings, hearings, and testimony. But until then, investigators and prosecutors must work with what can be proven. Not rumor, not social media speculation. Evidence. June 27th, 2026. Police respond to Queen Alexandria Lane and discover Keyana Weathersby, Erica Weathersby, and 2-year-old Camari Givens dead inside the home. June 29th. Cornelius Carter and Jordan Carter are arrested following a law enforcement pursuit connected with the investigation. June 30th. Both men appear in court and are denied bond. Mikala Young is arrested and charged. July 1. Young appears in court and is denied bond. That same day, hundreds of miles away in Forney, Texas, U.S. Marshals and other authorities arrest Devone Modacure. July 3rd. Jackson officials publicly announce that a stolen police rifle has been linked to the murders. July 8th. The Hinds County coroner provides additional information about the victim's wounds, reinforcing investigators' description of a deliberate, close-range attack. July 16th. Modacure, after being returned to Mississippi, makes his initial court appearance. He faces 3 capital murder counts and several additional charges. Bond is denied. 4 suspects, 3 victims. 1 case that is still moving through the justice system. There is an understandable desire in cases like this to search immediately for a simple explanation, a reason that makes the violence somehow understandable. But some crimes resist simple explanations. No stolen property, disagreement, or criminal plan can make the killing of a child understandable. No theory can restore the people who died, and no arrest erases what their family experienced. What the justice system can do is attempt something different, establish facts, assign responsibility where the evidence supports it, protect the rights of the accused while seeking accountability for the victims, and create a public record of what happened, for Keyana, for Erica, and for Camari. At the center of this case is not the weapon, not the police pursuit, not the defendants, and not even the disturbing discovery involving the stolen rifle. At its center are 3 people whose lives ended inside their home: Keyana Weathersby, Erica Weathersby, and 2-year-old Camari Givens. Their names deserve to be remembered for more than the way they died. And as this case progresses through Mississippi's courts, their family waits for something that cannot undo June 27, 2026. but may provide one measure of accountability: justice. For now, the Queen Alexandria Lane triple homicide remains an active case. Cornelius Carter, Jordan Carter, Mikala Young, and Devone Modacure have been charged in connection with the killings. All remain legally presumed innocent unless proven guilty. The investigation and court process continue, and somewhere behind every headline, every court appearance, and every piece of forensic evidence is a family that entered the summer of 2026 with 3 people they loved and left one Saturday night without them.